everyone. This is Olaton Williams, your presenter on Borders Author Interviews. I also review books on Borders Book Reviews, an independent book review hosted on Facebook. Today I'll be talking to Abubakar Adam Ibrahim, author of the novel Season of Crimson Blossoms, published in Nigeria by Paracia Books and in the UK by Cassava Republic Press. Season of Crimson Blossoms is Ibrahim's first novel and the topic of this podcast. Centering on a fairly typical lower middle class family resident in Jos, Plateau State, in the north central zone of Nigeria, the book charts the journey of the family matriarch, a war widow, as she discovers herself as a sexual being. The book follows other family members also, notably Binta's orphan niece. All of this in the aftermath of what have become known as the Jos riots. These armed conflicts, which broke out between Muslims and Christians resident in the city of Jos, took place in fits and starts between 2001 and 2011. Winner of the 2016 Nigeria Prize for Literature, Season of Crimson Blossoms is a promising first novel by a native of Jos, Abubakar Adam Ibrahim, who has written it in memory. Welcome, Abubakar, to Borders Author Interviews.
Thank you, Tone. It's a pleasure.
I know you've been very busy. I've been hearing lots of good news about your talks and your achievements. Congratulations on both publications of Season of Crimson Blossoms. I hear the Cassava Republic Press in the UK edition is out now.
Yes, it's been out since November 2015.
It's fantastic. Paracia Books. I've got the copy right here with me. I'm holding it proudly in my hand. A big congratulations on that.
Thank you very much, Tone. Really appreciate it.
It was a very strong shortlist. How did you feel when you got the results?
Yeah, strong shortlists. Amazing writers, Nathan, John, and Chika Onibe, really brilliant writers, wonderful persons, so, either of them could have won and I would have been just as happy, so.
Have you recovered? Have you recovered from winning yet?
I think it's kind of hard to recover from this because you have a lot of things going on right now, and you don't even have time to disengage and assess everything. It's very full on, actually.
Yes. Season of Crimson Blossoms. I have it in my hand, and I've got. I'm reading Zoe Wickham's review, the little blurb on the cover. A powerful and compelling debut, a novel to be savored. But before we talk about your great achievement, talk to us about yourself, your background, your education, your work.
I was born in Jos. I suppose everyone knows that by now. But yes, I was born in Jos. I had all my education in Jos. I went to St. Michael's Roman Catholic Mission School, and then to Government Secondary School Gangare in Jos. I went to the University of Jos to study mass communication. Before that, I'd been a science student in secondary school, so it was quite a diversion to move from sciences to the arts, because I realized at that point that I wanted to write and not to be a medical doctor or something. I've been working as a journalist for the last 9 years now, I think, and it's been fun. I think that's the much there is to say about it.
Which newspaper do you work for? Tell our listeners.
I work for the Daily Trust here in Abuja.
Well, you've written your first novel. Do you consider yourself now, with all the success you've received, more of a novelist and less of a journalist?
I've always been a writer first before being a journalist. I mean, for me, writing was the in thing. It was the main thing. It has always been. I knew I wanted to write from when I was 13. I was sure about that. And by the time I was 18, I was definitely sure I wanted to write for the rest of my life. So journalism was and is a means to an end. It is not the end yet. So I always define myself as a writer first, then as a journalist.
Interesting. Listen, your book, I mean, one of the reasons I really wanted to read this book, as well as L. Nathan John's book, Born on a Tuesday, is because both books are set in the north of Nigeria. And I'm a typical southerner. I know too little about the north of Nigeria, but it's fascinating. And Jos, the city particularly, and that's where your book is set. So, Abubakar, talk to us about
Mm.
the cultural and historical context of Season of Crimson Blossoms.
Well, the north of Nigeria is very interesting. It is massive. It is huge. It has this huge population of people, and people sort of think it's homogeneous because almost everyone speaks Hausa here, but that is not the reality. I mean, it's a very diverse society. Yes, there's a dominant religion, there's a dominant language, but there are different people with different cultures and different perceptions of life. Um, in terms of the cultural context, it's very complicated. It's um, you know, there is what you can call perhaps a generic modern Nigerian culture or outlook in life, which for those who know people from the north, they are more relaxed about things, they are more laid back, they are more, you know, fatalistic, if you like. They tend to accept that, yes, God is in charge of everything, so when things go bad, they are kind of relaxed about it. When things are good, they kind of, give credit to God and all that. It's the general outlook here. Um, so the context, the cultural context for the book is that there are cultural issues that shape the way people think and behave and interact in the north of Nigeria. And this culture, these practices are so deeply entrenched in the people's minds and in their ways of life that they hardly even recognize that it is a cultural phenomenon that is dictating how they think and behave. So, for instance, Binta, Binta can't relate with her first son because culture forbids her from doing so, So she can't show him any kind of affection. She can't show him that she really cares, and she can't call him by his birth name. Uh, and a lot of people grow up in the north, and they don't even think about this as a problem or something they should actually look at. That the relationship between a mother and a child is severed by some kind of cultural idea that people have built into their lives and built into their system. So that is one of the things I was really interested in looking into. There are lots of issues as well, how parents relate to their children, how children relate to their parents in return, how men and women relate, and all these things. They are defined by the culture of the people. You know. So in writing this book, it's complicated because there are all these issues that define every kind of relationship on different kinds of levels, and if you don't deal with them appropriately and address them correctly, then you're going to have a problem. And I hope I've done justice to that.
Yeah. You mentioned Binta. Of course, she's at the center of the book. She's the heroine of the book. But she's a peculiar kind of heroine from the north. She's a subversive. She becomes a subversive. Am I overstating it? Talk to us about your portrayal of Binta. Talk to us some more. You've mentioned her already.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if she's a subversive. She just wanted to do something for herself, not bring down a system, not challenge any preconceived dogmas or ideas about how life should be lived. The fascinating thing about her is that all her life, for 55 years, she has been really compliant. She has done every single thing that the society expects of her. She married a man she didn't want to marry, but because that was the expectation, she obeyed. She lived through life with this man. Not that she enjoyed it, but society expected her to pretend to enjoy it, and she did that. And her sexual relationship was defined by societal expectations. Um, and that is the relationship between her and her husband. But the one moment she decides to veer off course and do something, even when she's free from the shackles of marriage, it becomes a societal problem. It is sort of a defiance of everything that governs how her life has lived.
Give us.
Yeah. So.
Oh, sorry, I'm interrupting you.
No, it's fine. I think I'm. Yeah. She's a peculiar kind of person, but at the same time, she's someone you could see and relate with. I mean, at least that is what I hope anyway. That people could see and say, well, I know a woman like this. I know a woman who could be Binta.
Give us a summary of the main themes. Now we're talking about Binta, without giving too much away.
Well, it's a book about relationships. So that is one. It's a book about love, not love in the romantic sense, even though there's that kind of love in it. But it's about how people interpret love and fail to interpret love. It has political undertones, of course, because of the relationship between Hassan Reza and the senator. It has the backdrop of the violence in Jos, which is something I'm very, very close to, having been born and bred in Jos.
Hassan Reza Babali, he is
Yeah.
a traumatized anti-hero. He's at the center of the book, and he is traumatized. He's also a perpetrator of what you describe as habitual communal violence. So, what were your intentions when you conceived Reza Babali?
Well, I mean, there are many people like Hassan Reza out there. There are people who are, in his own case, he was abandoned by his mother when he was months old, and the first time he saw her, and he was 11 by then. And there are women like that who abandon their children and just leave. These children grow up without love, without any care, without any. So they have to kind of find their way in lives and, find ways of coping with the challenges of life. And for him, he found it in being a thug, in being a political gun for hire. And he developed a mechanism to cope with all the challenges that life has thrown at him. Um, he is a really interesting character. I liked him a lot. I enjoyed writing him, and people have actually enjoyed reading him. I think more than I expected. Um, I've been accosted by people who say, "Oh, why did you let this happen to Reza? Or why did you do this to him?" And they were really very emotional and all that. And at some point, I was afraid they were going to attack me for Reza's fate. Uh, so yeah, that has been interesting. He's a very interesting character. What I wanted to do with him is to highlight the fact that the people who see themselves as strong men in the way Reza saw himself or sees himself as a strong man. But then if you look at the background, there's someone there who's pulling the strings, and that is where the senator comes in.
He's quite a character. He is quite a character. If I were to draw him, if I were a visual artist, he would have yellow eyes and teeth stained with cola nut juice. And I love the portrait of him popping strawberries into his mouth and his penchant for the finer things of life.
Mm-hmm.
So talk to us, because he is a fascinating character, however evil. Talk to us about that portrayal, that very peculiar portrayal of this politician, and also about the way he relates to the thugs of the underworld, the language they speak, which is very peculiar.
Yeah, he's a smart politician. he knows there's a need for people to do the dirty work, and he chose carefully. He chose Reza to do that for him. So even though he has an army of thugs at his disposal, he doesn't have any direct relationship with them because he has a direct relationship with the leader of those things, and that is Hassan Reza. Um, his character was informed by the kind of political leaders we have who are self-centered and focused only on their own personal interest rather than that of the society, and they use people like Hassan Reza and give them the impression that we're doing this for you, and if you read the book, the senator keeps saying, well, I'm 70, I don't have anything to lose, I'm rich, I don't care for anything else, I'm just doing all this for you. And we have a lot of politicians like that. I remember a cousin of mine who went to serve somewhere in the north, and when he got there, one of the leaders of the community said, well, you are here as visitors, you are here to spend a year. These people have their peculiar way of living, so just see them and leave them the way you see them. And this cousin of mine was really intrigued by this because he said, well, we were sent here to make an impact to improve the lives of the people, and here's a community leader telling us not to interfere. And what he discovered during the year of his service that this person, this community leader, is one of the few educated men in that community, and because of that, every administration has to deal with him. If the monthly allocation comes to the local government, they are the ones who handle it, they are the ones who share it, they are the ones who dispense it. And they discourage other people from going to school. Even though education was free in that community, and the government provides feeding for pupils to attend classes actually, as a sort of incentive. But the political leaders say, oh, you don't need this, you don't need the education and all that, because we're looking out for you, we're watching out for your interest, and I wanted to portray him in that way. People sort of think of politicians as callous and, brash people, but they're actually smart. As dumb as they think they are really smart. They know they're playing us, and that is what I wanted to do with this character.
You said you were close to the riots. Those are the words you used. You were close to the riots. Did I hear you right?
No, I wasn't close to the riot. I was in the riot.
I see. If it's not too traumatic a memory for you, would you like to share some of that experience with us?
It is actually quite traumatic.
Okay, then we'll skip that question.
Yeah, it's fine. We could talk about it.
Okay, thank you. I mean, if you can, just briefly, just share a little bit of that with us.
Well, it's Jaws. It all started. It went crazy in 2001 on September 7th. And everybody who is from Jaws remembers that date. It's a defining moment for our entire lives. Um, no one can tell you precisely what happened. There are different rumors about how it started.
The Christians and the Muslims.
Yes, I'm a Muslim now, and if you ask me how it started, I will tell you, what happened. And if you ask a Christian person, he would probably tell you something different. That is the extent to which we have failed to reconcile on these issues and what's really happened and what is happening now. The violence went on for almost 10 years, intermittently, and people have been killed. People are still being killed as a result of what happened in September 2001. I mean, there are villages outside Jos that are still not at peace, that you have people raiding each other and killing each other in ways that you can't comprehend in the 21st century. Um, I was actually shot at by people. Fortunately, they missed me.
So sorry.
Yeah. No, it's fine. I mean, there are other people who went as lucky as me and they never got out. Yeah, it's a traumatic experience.
Thank you for sharing that with us. We really appreciate it. Um, on a lighter note, hopefully, I found it interesting that you use proverbs as chapter headings. And I'd like to read out a few of them I found very interesting. Um,
Yeah.
One is, "An elephant's tusks are never too heavy for it to carry." And that's the title of chapter 8. Another one
Mm.
is, "The sight of dark clouds should not make one throw away the water in the pitcher." And that
Mm.
is the title of chapter 23. And chapter 1, which I'd like to talk about, is, "No matter how far up a stone is thrown, it will certainly fall back to earth." And I'd love to talk about the relationship between that proverb and the contents of chapter 1.
Um, yeah, well, you know, for chapter one, that was an obvious choice of a proverb to start off with, and that is because Binta has been Binta wants to go on a different trajectory in her life, right? But society has dictated how she was supposed to live her life. So as far as she was concerned, you know, she was like the stone that was thrown into the air, and she had got to the point of where gravity had to take course.
That's an interesting one. Um,
Mm.
let's look at, "An elephant's tusks are never too heavy for it to carry," chapter 8. I found that intriguing.
Yeah, it's actually a Zimbabwean proverb, and you know, what I was trying to say with it is that there are responsibilities that people shoulder, either because they feel they are competent enough to shoulder those responsibilities, or the responsibilities fall on them by design or by accident. And that chapter sort of dealt with Hassan Reza being in his elements, being the head of San Siro, organizing talks and being a go-between them and the senator. So he has all those responsibilities to deal with, and he feels very confident and very capable of handling all those weight that is placed on his shoulders. And then again, he also has his personal issues that he's not sharing with anyone else. So those were the tasks he, as the elephant, sort of had to carry. Mm.
I see. Very interesting. Okay, on a tangent now, something I loved. To a large extent, the book is about sexual repression in the north of Nigeria, and yet we have Faiza, Binta's lovely niece. She's delightful. She's a teenager, and she spends all her time reading the Hausa equivalent of Harlequin romances and Mills and Boon. So talk to us about the so-called Soyaya novel, the culture and its prevalence in the north.
It is massive. It is huge. I think they end up publishing more books in Hausa than we publish in English. It's a remarkable industry. I mean, it's run by mostly housewives who are mostly the authors of these books. You know, and they write them targeting other housewives, targeting young women, targeting teenagers, targeting sometimes men that are young at heart as well. And it's a very loose structure because there are no proper publishing houses, so they pay for these books to be published, and the distribution network is amazing, like really amazing. Some people call it kind of market literature or something like that, but I think that's a bit derogatory because it's, yes, probably the heart of the publishing industry is in Kano, but it's far beyond Kano. It extends to almost every part of the north of the country, and there are lots of young people and a lot of women who engage with this literature. and they are really excited about it, and it's an incredible industry, and I hope really that they get support and develop this industry further.
Is there anything being done to assist traumatized people traumatized by armed conflicts, like Pfizer, who's a war orphan and who suffers from nightmares regularly? It's a part of her life. It's part of the fabric of her life now. Is there anything being done in terms of community support in Jos?
No, none that I know of. Anyway, but we just feel that if someone is dead and you are alive, then you have every reason to be grateful. Uh, we don't talk about the effects of this violence and what people have seen and how it impacts on this human psyche. And sometimes when you talk about it, people say, "Oh, you haven't seen anything yet," and then they tell you even gorier tales of something. People relate with these things differently, but unfortunately, I don't think there's any kind of system to deal with those traumatized people or address it. And if you show signs of trauma, people think there's something wrong with you, which was the case with Pfizer, for instance, right? She's suffering from trauma. She has all these episodes, and the people who are supposed to understand that this girl is going through something sort of come to the conclusion that she's being possessed by demons. Um, so we have different ways of interpreting these things. None of them is actually right. Um, I went to Maiduguri, for instance, recently to research on IDPs there, and
IDPs, internally displaced people.
internally displaced people, and I spoke to several NGOs there, and they said, we realize that there's a problem of people suffering from trauma, and we don't know exactly what to do because we're not experts in that field. And we're looking for trained psychologists to help us deal with these issues. We can't find them. Yeah. So that is quite a challenge. Even though now people are realizing that yes, maybe we need to address these issues, there are not enough professionals to deal with it. So that is quite a challenge.
I read somewhere that Boko Haram, the rise of Boko Haram, is tied up with the Jos riots. Reprisal attacks. They were involved in reprisal attacks for the killing of the original Muslim that sparked everything off. That was alleged to have sparked everything off. Is there any truth in that?
Not necessarily true. That is not necessarily true. The rise of Boko Haram was instigated by local politics in Borno State, which is far from Jos. And to be honest, you know, Boko Haram seemed very confused about what they really wanted and how they wanted to go about achieving it. Of course, it started with Muhammad Yusuf, who became a preacher and had this idea of establishing an Islamic state of some kind. Um, and they were stockpiling weapons. They were isolated killings even before 2009, when Boko Haram became violent. Eventually, after the 2009 uprising, which was violently repressed, they went underground, resurfaced in 2011. Thereafter, they came back and they said, well, we're here to avenge our comrades that were killed in the first instance. We're here to avenge our leader. And they started killing people. And then, there were attempts to negotiate sort of resolve the issue. And they said, oh, well, we're avenging the people of Jos. We're avenging this people and we're avenging that people. It didn't make any sense at all. So the idea of saying they were trying to avenge what happened in Jos came after 2011. After they resurfaced as a terrorist group, and I don't think it really has any connection with what happened in Jos. I think they were just essentially trying to have a wider appeal to people, to say, oh yeah, we're doing this for you, when in fact they're doing it for themselves. and even at that, they are not really clear what they want or how they want to do it. If they were really clear about their own ideologies, or what they wanted to achieve, I think it would have been easier to negotiate with them and talk to them. But today, if you ask them what do you want, they'll tell you something else. Tomorrow, if you ask, it will be something totally different. So, to be honest, I think they're just a group of perverts who enjoy killing and blood stealing without a clear idea of where they want to go or what they want to achieve.
Hassan Reza Babale. Is it fair to describe him as an emerging terrorist?
No, I don't see him as a potential terrorist. He's not very religious to start with. Yes, he's a political thug. He's interested in the money and the finances, but he also is very practical. You know, he's a very practical person. So no, I don't think he's a potential terrorist. But the irony is that in the violence in Jaws, in and elsewhere, you know, it is people like Hassan Reza who lead. They are junkies, they are drug addicts, they are drug dealers, they are, muggers. They commit all these felonies and crimes, right? But when these things come up, the people appeal to their sense of religion and all that, and they just turn up and say, okay, well, we're doing God's work. All of a sudden, after doing everything that is contrary to what God has ordered in the weeks before, or even the days before.
I've taken up a lot of your time, Abubakar. It's been really wonderful talking to you. But any exciting projects?
Yeah, I don't know if it's exciting. I'm writing a new novel, and possibly there might be a collection of short stories. I'm not giving details yet. You have to pay me for that. So I'm working on this for now, and we'll see how it goes.
That's it for this episode of Borders Author Interviews. A big thank you for joining me to Abubakar Adam Ibrahim, author of the novel Season of Crimson Blossoms, published in Nigeria by Paracia Books and by Cassava Republic Press in the UK. And to you, my listeners, thank you for your time. I hope you enjoyed the show. Do follow me on Borders Book Reviews posted on Facebook, as well as my reviews of good Africa-focused books. You will find my interviews also posted there. Join me next month on Borders Author Interviews. Goodbye.